isn't it? Feeling evergreen. You know I'm on your team. Tell me how do I end this? You feeling so reckless. I feel so helpless. God tell me what's next. I am not. But did I say too much? Is it never enough? Is it somewhere in between? Am I not a part of your dream? Your beautiful fantasy. I got a house by the lake we can run to. I got a blunt we can burn when you come through. I got new plans for you, so let's rendezvous. I got a house by the lake we can run to. I got a blunt we can burn when you come through. I got new plans for you, so let's rendezvous. Look alive for me, baby. Don't you cry for me, baby. I got eyes on you, baby. Just look alive for me, baby. Look alive for me, baby. Don't you cry for me, baby. I got eyes on you, baby. Whoa. Just look alive for me, baby.
Well, hi, everybody. How are you? Welcome to Conversation Matters. I'm Dave Kelly, and I'm thrilled to be here with you. And don't worry if it's not interesting yet. It's because it's me. It's going to get a lot more interesting right away. This is a conversation for event planners, for performers, for companies that are all saying, "I just want people to get together." Well, this is your lucky day because this is part of our ongoing conversation where we bring great people together to talk about that very thing. How do we get people together and how do we get that feeling that we had before? And we're going to be working hard to do that. And of course, E equals MC squared is the heart and soul of these conversations. And they're back with us again. Jocelyn Flanagan is with us. Jocelyn started E equals MC squared 20 years ago. And she's with us, as is Keri Miller. Keri's a partner at E equals MC squared. And between the two of them, they've built this company into an international company based in Canada, and we're glad you're both with us here. I'll talk to you first. Hey, Jocelyn, how are you? Jocelyn Flanagan, hello. Are you there? That's all right. Let's talk to Keri in her living room. Hi, Keri. What a beautiful space you're in. How are you doing?
Well, thank you. I'm really good. How are you, Dave?
I'm really good. I was thinking maybe after you can read Goodnight Moon to everybody. It feels like you could do that for us very well.
I could,
Uh,
yes.
Tell us, while Jocelyn's getting back on this, tell me from your perspective, and we're going to talk to our two incredible guests in just a bit. Talk about your view. What's the state of the world, state of events? What's your state of mind? How are you doing?
Uh, State of mind first probably is I'm really feeling optimistic. You know, we thought about what we would put together for an outlook for this year, and um, in 2020, every second and every day was completely different. So you never knew what to plan, and this year is no different. So us having a little bit of a blue sky look at what might be coming, I think is exciting, and I'm really looking forward to these special guests today and this conversation, because it's been, the conversations we've had up to this point have been spectacular. So, and thank you, Dave, for joining us again.
Well, you know what I'd even say, Keri? I'd say that conversation matters. See how I did that right there? Isn't that amazing? How's our Jocelyn take? If in case you're wanting and waiting to see Jocelyn, she's also, along with doing this, she's got her chemistry set out back, and she's working on her own vaccine. So that's taken her. She's a little bit split focused, but that's just the way she is. She cares deeply and she's hard at work. So when she's back, we'll get her in here, we'll get talking. So Keri, why don't we talk about our two guests, and we'll bring Jocelyn when she's got her what is it, vinegar and baking soda mixed. But tell us a bit about how excited this is to get these two people with us.
This is really exciting for me. Normally in January, we're at the special event or in different conferences around the world, meeting up with colleagues that are global friends. And when we couldn't do that, it just came to mind that we needed to bring a couple of them to the table to have the conversations that we might have had at the hotel lounge. So Colja and Voltons, I have a massive creative crush on that company, and I've listened to everything that they've said and stalked them for years. And Colja was actually the catalyst to us attending C2 back in the day because, you know, he's genius, he's paying attention to things, and the insights that he brings to our industry are huge. So, and then Dan, we've been working alongside Dan for a little while, he and his team. And we're really excited about the possibilities of that market. And it's a completely different viewpoint of what's happening with COVID and what's happening in the world moving forward as well. So thank you, Dan and Colja, for coming.
I'll introduce them shortly, but first, Jocelyn Flanagan, back from her chemistry set where she's worked on a new vaccine. How was work there, Joss? How's it going?
You know, I've been very busy. That's why I was a little bit delayed here. Sorry. You know, we just wanted to share when virtual event, you know, as we're in virtual event worlds, and we know that often our speakers are delayed by technology. I just wanted to prove that, you know, that can happen, and we've got hosts and contingency plans to make it work when people like me have computer issues.
Well, we're thrilled you're with us. Now, Keri did a good buildup of our guests, so I'm just going to flow into that, and then I'll pick on you in a bit. Right. Is that okay, Keri?
Perfect.
Okay,
great.
So I want to talk about Colja first, and I'll read just some of the work he's done and a little bit about his company, and there's no way I'll get it all in there. But let me talk a little bit about Colja and his company while we take a look at some of the work he has already done. And he sent us in a video of that. Colja Dams, owner, CEO of Volk Dams Worldwide, an international agency that has been at the forefront of international events and live marketing industry since 1971. Its many international awards and distinctions confirm their reputation as one of the leading agencies worldwide, both for live and digital format. It's under his leadership that Volk Dams branched out internationally with currently 300 employees, 19 offices in 12 companies. Good on you, but also 12 countries. He is a driven man. This is a family business, and it's always interesting to me when you say a family business because you think of a small corner store. This ain't no corner store, and we're so glad he's with us here. Welcome. Thanks so much for being with us here, Colja. It's nice to have you with us. Hi, Colja. How are you doing out there? How's life? It's good. So
thank you for the video. Well, thank you very much for the invite. And I'm missing seeing you all in some warm environment. Jocelyn, Keri, somewhere in the sun belt of the US, as usually in the beginning of the year. So I'm really missing this. And thank you very much for taking this opportunity to bring us virtually together here.
Well, we're not all in the sun belt, but now I get to introduce somebody who's had to deal with the sun, not like the rest of the folks on the call. Let me tell you a little bit about Dan Bolton, and then we're going to get our conversation started. Dan Bolton is the owner and director and creative producer of Dan Bolton Creative Management Agency. He's an artistic director, creative producer, 21 years experience, and an extensive global network in live events, entertainment, and performance industry. None of those are him, but he did those. Specializing in artist management and the conceptualization, creation, and delivery of live performances, Dan's career has taken him to the four corners of the globe, and he's taken leading roles in successfully delivering projects such as the inauguration of the Louvre Abu Dhabi, I mean, come on, who else gets to say that? And the opening and closing ceremonies of the 2018 Jakarta Palembang Asian Games. He's based in the Middle East, and we're so lucky to have him with us here today. Dan, thank you so much for being here. It's good to have you with us. And tell us, based in the Middle East, where are we talking to you from today?
So yes, I'm here in Dubai, just in my office. Yeah, it's quite late in the evening, so yeah. So good morning, good afternoon, whichever time zone people are in.
Isn't that the way? This is the way of the future, is talking to people and who knows where and when they are. And you were mentioning earlier you got some sun today, something I don't have to deal with in Calgary quite the same way. So we're thrilled to have you with us.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Tell me, Dan, I'll ask you and then I'll go to Colja, and then Kolja's got some big picture stuff. In the Middle East, what's the state of COVID? What's the state of restrictions? What's the state of events there?
So I think it really depends in which part of the Middle East you're in. Even within our own country here, the UAE, is quite different. Abu Dhabi, for example, our capital, there's still quite a lot of restrictions. You can't actually do many events over there at the moment. However, if you're in Dubai where we are, then things are really getting back to some sort of normal. There are live events happening. The reason why I got the sunburn today was actually because I was on site with rehearsals for an event that goes live tomorrow. So, things are moving. It just really depends on where you are. And obviously, the situation which is happening and affecting around the world, it still affects here as well. So people are watching quite closely to understand what might happen next, but still putting those safety procedures in place to hopefully get back to a live environment again.
I want to talk to you, Colja, about your thoughts on live events and hybrid events. But first, from Germany, and I know you're global, but from your perspective in Europe, how is COVID there? How is your perspective on how events are going there?
Yeah, right now we are actually back in a lockdown situation, but this is changing. So small events are happening in Germany, in Europe, and in the rest of the world. So we do see a very positive movement, not only towards hybrid events, but also to live events, small events, very regional, but there are things happening.
Good. Well, I know you thought a lot about, you've written a book, but also in this situation specifically about hybrid events. Can you talk us through sort of the talk you give and your sense of where the future lies?
I'd love to do that. So I'm just going to give you a very quick rundown. I'll skip the introduction. It's actually a family company, like you said. My father built up the company, and now I'm in it together with Claudia, my wife, and let's see when my children come in. So we were hit by COVID like everyone else in the industry. But the advantage we had was that over the past years, we have been looking like, I know, Jocelyn, you have been also looking very closely into digital and virtual and also hybrid events over the past years. And especially a lot of our team comes with a digital background. So we have been going from 75% live and only 25% digital to almost fully digital in the last year. And we do believe that the future is going to be hybrid. Hybrid, really bringing together live and digital and thereby combining the advantages of live and digital. And one of the advantages is, depending on the pandemic situation you have right now, you can decide how much live, how much digital you go. So this also ensures you that if you're now putting your money as a brand in a corporate event, that it will happen. If you are unlucky in a pandemic situation in a certain country, it may be turning to totally digital, but you are always having the chance to choose. And one thing I like best about it is it's not only us that believe in it. It's also Gartner, who just published last week that they will predict that by 2023, over 60% of all marketing experiences will be hybrid event experiences. Now, what we see in the event market is that there have been different phases we've been going through. First, there was a shock phase. The second, there was a experiential phase. An experiential phase where a lot of single events were translated into digital. We called it like last year, but digital. So very much on a per project level, things were. Then there was a waiting phase in the summer where everyone thought, let's wait how it's going to develop. And then we experienced a strategic phase. And this strategic phase is totally different from what happened before, because we feel that a lot of clients now hit the reset button and say, okay, I'm not going to go from one digital event to a next digital event. I kill all my projects and really start from a blank page piece of paper and then take it from there and really group all the budgets together and then develop something out of this, a new way in communicating with the clients. So it's not just the digitalization of one event, but it's really opening the entire possibility for a hybrid experience. And these experiences, we believe, will be going in the direction of marketing experience hubs, where the communication with your client, may it be on awareness or sales-oriented, really comes together in the future in marketing experience hubs. But just taking back a step, we have been doing over 700 digital and hybrid events last year. And there, I'd like to share with you just a few outcomes, because we did an extensive internal survey together with our clients. What are the main success factors? And they're extremely obvious, but they're fun to concentrate on. First, it's participation, interaction. Everyone wants to create and work together. Then it's a multi-sensory, haptic moments coming together. The next one is autonomy and freedom of choice. That is a lot of times now forgotten, that you really have the choice and then bring it together. Then timing and pace is extremely important. And networking and the interpersonal dialogue. And at the end of the day, the content counts. It's not about the wrapping. That is just hygiene factors that are going with it. And no one is going to love your event because if they are not in the event business because you love the platform so much. It's by the end of the day about the content that is worth attending. And just summing it up, I do believe that in all of us, there is this campfire gene that is trying to get us back together. I can't wait to fly the next time to Canada, be it on business or on vacation. So thank you for having me.
It's a great. I have 1,000 questions, but I don't want to take all of that. From Jocelyn, from your perspective, and I know you know Colja well, listening to that, what's your impressions, or what does that spring to your mind?
Well, it's obviously always great to hear what Colja has and all the research he does, because he's generally on the forefront, and none of this is a surprise to us. And I think the data points at the end is really key, and it's what we've all been feeling. And I think for us, there is a sense of optimism as we're moving forward. And I do, the timeline and the phases that Colja had mentioned is exactly the same ones that we were going through. And it is this reset that is actually provides a sense of optimism, because it's not, we have to stop saying back to what it was, because I think we can all agree that it's not going back to what it was, but that's okay. But it doesn't mean that the event industry is done and events aren't happening. It just means that we've got a really cool opportunity and to speak to really a variety of different audiences and sort of this audience demographic. I've got lots to say about that and how we're speaking, this content piece. How are we delivering? How are we speaking to the extroverts, the introverts, the ones that want to be live, the ones that want to be behind the digital screen? It's just these are the interesting conversations. And also that we are now back to the strategic phase, We're not an event tactic anymore. We are part of the strategy of how are we going to be spending the dollars, and how are we going to help our clients create those strategies and be part of those to move forward. So I've got lots to say, but I'm very optimistic about what we can do going forward.
Dan, I think of our guests today, you have a unique perspective, because 20 years ago, or before, your sort of initial time was as a performer, which gives, I think, a performer always has a razor feel for audience, because you know when you're connecting and when you aren't. How do you see audiences being as engaged with where things are going?
That's a really good question. One that I wasn't expecting.
I know.
Yeah,
I like
I think
to throw you.
you threw a grenade in there. Like, oh, do you know what? Like, for me, it's about that live experience, and I think, especially from the world that I come in, which is performance, circus. Nothing beats seeing the feats of the athletes and the feats of the performers on a stage doing these amazing things, and also having those really wonderful moments where you see that kid in the front row, or that family enjoying themselves and having that kind of all collective experience. And that's one of the things which has really gotten me through these kind of, I guess, like dark times over the last 10 months is, that as human beings, like we're social beings, and we want to come together, and we really enjoy these little magic moments of specialness when these type of things happen. So for me as a performer anyway, like we like the audiences, we like people, we want to see people in front of us. So it's really weird to do it on a computer screen. But I agree with all the comments that everyone is mentioning. It's like, we do live in this digital age now. So for us in particular, and from a performance point of view, it's now understanding, well, how can we take what we do and, enhance that or grow that in the digital world? And for us, that's through the storytelling, through the behind the scenes, through these, really amazing content pieces that we can create that normally people wouldn't see when they're in the audience. So you can give them, a bit of a unique experience and make people feel engaged that way. So it doesn't necessarily take away from that live environment. So yes, it's exciting. It is actually exciting for the time ahead, for sure.
Are you optimistic? I mean, as if you're going to say no, but like, how do you feel about going forward?
Do you know, actually, I'm really glad you asked that question, because today's the most optimistic I've felt in a very, very long time. So I'm very fortunate. I think Dubai in particular has handled the pandemic well. The UAE, they put lots of precautions. They took really strict measures, which was very, very tough in the beginning. But obviously got us into a position where we can start to enjoy freedoms a little bit more. So today I was on site for an event that will literally bring the world back together again in 10 months' time, or less than 10 months' time. And I was sat with my client and with a group of people, and we were watching live musicians perform on a stage in a sound check, and we saw people enjoying themselves again. And that for me was the first time where I felt optimistic about the future. We will get events back again. We will have these big global sporting events or expos and things. They might be slightly different, but they will come back. And I'm very fortunate, very excited that at least in my home city where I am right now, in October, we actually get to host one, which will probably be one of the first biggest events that the world has seen in this kind of post-pandemic environment. So today was optimistic. Today was good.
That's good. Anyone that wants to jump in on this, I feel like the mistake people make is to think, well, if we're event people, we just put on an event and then aim a camera at it, and there you go. Now we've got a virtual event, and then it's deadly boring. What is the better version of that? Anyone jump in?
Dave, it's interesting that you say it from that perspective, because we're part of events where there's a broadcast element to it, a live event element to it. And I think this is our opportunity. Broadcasters think of what people see on the screen. Live event, think of what people feel in the room. And so now we all have to come together and come up with these conversations, so that it is a different lights that you put on the stage when you have a broadcast than what you have in a live event. So how are we going to be marrying these together? And it becomes one large conversation to create these two separate experiences that is really important. And I know we were speaking earlier about the Olympic Games and events such that you're talking about, Dan, where you have that live audience gets a unique feel in there, and they get to choose if they want to go as Colja was saying, do we go to the Olympics? Do we sit in the stands for the opening ceremonies? What we see in those stands and what we feel is very different than what we see on TV. A lot of people would opt to watch that digitally because they get the close-up camera shots. They get 5, 10, 20 different camera angles, whereas an audience member, you get one shot, you're looking straight forward and you don't necessarily get that experience. So right now the audiences, as we're moving forward, get to choose. So they get to choose, and we as event professionals get to speak to two separate audiences, really. And again, it just becomes a little bit more robust conversation and strategy on the front end.
Keri, what's your take?
Same as everybody's, but I think I've been to a few events now that have attempted to do hybrids, so small group of people, and then a sort of virtual or digital component to it, where they're trying to make them exactly the same. And they're trying then to blend them. So you'll be at a live event and all of these people are standing around looking at a screen of a whole bunch of other people on a Zoom call, and they're trying to communicate via their phones. I'm like, what's the point? So I think we do need to look at this as live in-person events need to be completely thought of differently in the strategy around them to the virtual or the digital component. That you can't expect them to blend exactly the same and give those audiences the exact same feel. Being digital is not the same as being in person. It's just not. So don't create them the same. And our clients will, I think that Colja's comment too about the reset and the strategy is now's the time for our clients to bring all of us in and have some dialogue about what that can potentially look like and how we can all help. And there's opportunities out there too for the industry to change and for new roles and new jobs and new innovations in this move forward.
Colja, for you, what works? Because clearly it's not, well, we'll have an event and we'll just aim a camera at it and call it that. So what is the strategy you've used and what have you seen working to make a hybrid event work?
Absolutely. This is really the magic. If you compare it to television has been trying to do this for decades now to develop an interactive channel. And it never worked out. And this is what we have been doing in the last month. So we are creating interactive, digital, virtual broadcasts. And all of a sudden it works. And you get people out of their home into the broadcast. And you have a second opportunity in a chat working constantly together. And then there are these little moments bringing people together. I'm a huge fan of a tool like Chat Roulette, where you randomly mix people up from the virtual audiences, from the live audiences, and get them in one-on-one conversations together. Maybe then swap them every 30 seconds or something. Some even call it internally like Tinder for events. It's amazing. People are having so much fun, and you're creating a totally different experience, but somehow it is an equivalent to the experience you had walking up to your cocktail table and meeting new people to have a drink with at your event. And you just do this now virtually. And it's amazing what comes out of it.
Did you work with a lot of big companies on launches, cars? Some of the big car companies in the world will come to you to launch one of their vehicles. What are they saying? Are they saying, well, can you virtually launch a car? Does that work?
Of course you can, but they do take this reset extremely serious right now, because if you do what you used to do, you did a launch event for a very small group, like the international press, bringing them all together, showcasing the new product, and then they go out there and write or Twitter about it. So now, when you're in the virtual world by the first, you don't really have to differentiate. It doesn't really make sense to keep it in a closed center and then have it others take it out of there. So what we see right now, that lots of companies merge their internal press and marketing departments together with the digital and live experience departments and really get one task force out of it. So they do not think in the channels like the press launch channel that we used to look into, and then you do the all worldwide launch for the general public. So you think it really together now. And this is extremely new and has a lot of momentum.
There's from folks watching, there's a lot of questions coming in. Keep them coming in if you're in the chat. We'll get to them in just a couple of minutes. But Dan, I want your perspective for the performers who are watching this. Somebody who their bread and butter was their amazing circus actor, they're tremendous singers. Now they're looking at their income and they're going, I don't even know what I can do. Have you found a way, or do you think there's a way to make that work in a hybrid or virtual way for a performer?
I mean, it's challenging, isn't it? Because, a lot of performers, the reason why they do this is because you love a live environment. You like an audience, you're gigging in a venue of 100 people, or you're performing on a stage for Cirque du Soleil. So it is really, really challenging, especially from the industry that I'm in, performance. Like we've been decimated globally, I think it is fair to say. And it's been, extremely challenging. I think the biggest takeaway with the digital element, especially during that initial lockdown phase, was just trying to understand, well, how can you monetize this? I think from a performance point of view, so many people are putting content online for free. And it's like, it's not really, unless people are still trying to figure out, it's not really a sustainable business model. If people are constantly putting stuff out there for free, well, then how do you charge for it? How do you still make revenue for it? So I think that's quite an interesting challenge. But I think, going back to some of the comments people made in this conversation previously, is now how people are looking at this more holistically. We're looking at live events, but then also looking at how we can transfer that live event environment or that content or that messaging and merge it with the marketing budgets, or merge it with the marketing collateral. So I guess what we're seeing more of in Dubai in particular, which is quite interesting, is performance artists being like brand campaigns, or in TV commercials, or creating mini documentaries which are supporting brands. There's a lot of storytelling which is coming out of it now, and I think that's where there could be something quite interesting for performers in particular. I guess that's a way of obviously then monetizing it, because people, performers in particular, they need to generate revenue. So rather than putting content online for free, working with brands to align and create a narrative, create a story, create a performance, create something which then again, it gives a viewer something to watch, and it gives them an experience. So yes, I think that's quite interesting. Maybe that's something more we'll see in the time ahead.
Joss, I know for both you and Keri, part of the world is client expectations. It's related to this. So how do you see, from your perspective in Canada, this world going of virtual and hybrid, and where is the money in there? Like, can you make a good living doing that?
I think we're all back to the reset phase and the education phase. So I liken this to 20 years ago when we started out in with our company, and having to explain what the value proposition of having an event professional work on an event and the value of an event within an organization. There was a lot of education back then to get clients on board, and really to create this industry profession as a whole. And we're back to that phase now, where when at the beginning of the pandemic, virtual events, I think everybody, certainly clients, thought, well, this won't cost very much. We don't have food, we don't have beverage, we don't have decor, we don't have venue rental, so it's not going to cost us very much. But what we have all learned, and our clients have learned along with us and beside us, is that there are costs. They're just different costs. There is, and what more so than the cost is the value, that the true value that we've been able to, that we are creating with these virtual events. So the idea that, yes, we're social beings and that we can adapt to our physical environment in order to still create the connections and the needs. So one, I think the value proposition is still there from an event, from a connection, from a marketing, as Colja has talked about, to engage performers to tell that story. So I think what has happened over the last number of months is that the value of our industry, the value of events from an external standpoint has actually increased because we know we need it. People miss it. We need that connection. We need that education. We need all of that. So again, with this reset button, we're able to just, rephrase it, reformat it.
It's to your point, Colja, about the campfire. That's still a drive, but how do you create that is the trick. And if you do it, then people will want to be there, don't you think?
And I think, sorry, Dave, just to jump back in, is again, if we look at different audiences, when we used to do events, 4,500 person corporate Christmas events, and within that physical space, we had to think about the various psychographics and demographics. People that want loud music are going to stand in this. People that are a little bit shyer are going to stand over here. Or conferences. How do we get introverts to speak to each other at a conference? What we have now with virtual and with this hybrid model is we've got the extroverts can come, the introverts can be online, but they can still connect. The whole chat function allows people to sit behind their computer that might not speak out loud, but actually engage with their fellow colleagues or their clients or whatnot behind the screen. So we're actually giving more people an opportunity to connect that might not have otherwise connected.
Colja.
No, absolutely. And like Jocelyn said, I believe by the end of the day, we also have to prove now again, after the pandemic, whenever that's going to be, that spending more money again in bringing people live together, that the value in coming together live needs to be higher than the value of just a digital event. And I believe that it's not only this campfire gene that drives us there, but there are certain moments that we're missing out right now in all the virtual events, especially if it's to touch and feel a product. So that will come back, and that will come back fast.
Anyone jump in on this? How do you deal with the crystal ball problem, where a client or a performer or whoever will come to you and say, we want to do something in May? I mean, talk to any school teacher. They'll tell you they don't know what's going to happen on Tuesday. How the heck can you predict what things are going to be like in May? How do you guys handle that?
The huge advantage with a hybrid event is if you plan hybrid, you can still decide. In worst case, you go fully 100% digital, or you can move it into live as much as possible. There are some convention bureaus in the world that do see this possibility, and Dubai especially we've just been with a car launch in Dubai in December, because this was the only place in the world where people can fly into from all over the world and still enjoy an event right now. And there's some areas, as an example, Berlin, for example, is offering that the Convention Bureau of Berlin will take over cancellation costs, so that you can be planning on doing something live, and they will take out the risk on cancellation in case it's a pandemic issue. So, and I believe that there are options like this with convention bureaus all over the world supporting the industry.
Yeah, Keri, what has been your experience? Because I know in Canada, it's the same thing, province to province, rules change overnight, and then there you are trying to make something happen when the rules change.
Yeah, I think the crystal ball, we've tucked it underneath a couch somewhere and just not even looking at it. Yeah, I agree with Colja. If you're planning hybrid, then you have that adaptation, that easy adaptation. However, not a lot of budgets are prepared for that dual chance. So it's one or the other in a lot of cases, and most clients, I would say, are risk adverse and budget adverse as far as building out 2 different events that may or may not happen, cancellation coverage or not. And then the expectation that we're building out 1 to 6 events that will change on the daily, that we need to modify, and all the contingency plans that we all need to put into place. I think those are hard. So from a client education perspective, it's important that, yes, we can build and plan for hybrid with the expectation that our value and the time spent doing that is covered. But yeah, I think it's the smartest thing is to build it out hybrid and then select as we go, because everything will change, like you say, on the daily.
And I think too, sorry, Dave, just one thing. When we're hiring people back in the day, the driving value was flexible, is that we needed to hire people that were flexible in the event industry. And now it's even more so. I think both Dan and Colja can attest to, it's all last minute. We do have to be flexible because rules are changing. We did an event in December where we had executives come into studios. Well, today they wouldn't be allowed into studios because they're not allowed out of their house. So then how do we adapt? And it is on a day to day. So flexibility from a humanistic perspective is really key, more now than it was even before in our industry.
I guess we're all moving to Dubai is the answer. We're going to be staying in your place, Dan. I hope that's cool with you.
You're more than welcome. Just take that PCR test before you come.
What's your perspective, though? Because I know you can say I have a big event in 10 months because that's 10 months away. But how do you deal with March, April, May, June? What is your world in that game?
Again, I think we've been quite fortunate. I think, 2020 was hard. We had to kind of plan for every scenario. And literally, like from last minute cancellations, yes, it's happening. Dubai's very last minute. So we get lots of requests for, we need this for tomorrow. But what we're seeing now, especially for I guess like for Q1 and onwards, Dubai was mandated that it needed to open. Our leadership and the people which rule this city, this emirate, they want live events because they need it, because it's bums on seats for airlines, it's people in the hotel resorts. The whole economy really is built upon tourism and travel and trade and people coming together. So we've been very fortunate in that way that the steps that have been put in place have been enabling us to be able to do that. So I think, it's about being, again, I think somebody mentioned just being more flexible. Things do change. I think we're impacted more from a global perspective rather than a local perspective. We're quite fortunate where we've never gone backwards in restrictions. We always seem to move forward. Things open and things become more accessible. However, the big challenges that we have is that, we rely on the Brits, we rely on the Germans, the Canadians, the Americans. We rely on people coming to Dubai. So I think that for us has been quite challenging, because that's prohibited our clients from doing events, is because, they couldn't guarantee that they could have the international visitors coming in. More so because of the restrictions in their home countries rather than the restrictions here, or people's lack of confidence. People might not necessarily want to go somewhere. But then on the flip side of that, what we have seen is a massive uptake in, I guess, like the local market, the local tourism industry, local event industry. So that's kind of really sustained itself in many ways. We're very fortunate in that capacity. But again, it'll be interesting in the year ahead. We were talking, I think, in an off-air conversation previously as we were rehearsing, is about that consumer confidence and getting people to feel confident to go back to events again. And I think that's something which I kind of took for granted as being one of those early adopters. Like the minute events could start again, I wanted to be at one. I want to be at a concert. I want to be with people. But then actually, there's many people that don't. And I think, that's going to be an interesting world for us as we move ahead. It's just, how do we make people feel comfortable and confident and safe? And I think that's where we have to really plan and show that we're doing everything necessary and we're following the guidelines and doing everything possible to make it so that people want to come to our events again.
There's a lot of questions coming in on chat. Larissa, right to your point, said part of it is fear, right? So how do you see overcoming attendees' fears about, am I going to get sick? Should I be on a plane? Should I be doing all this? How do you see that shifting? Anyone jump in?
That's a really good question. I'm going to jump in with that one. Like I think we've been very fortunate in this way. Like we have had stronger leadership, and guidelines for the events industry and guidelines for hospitality and the airlines were immediately implemented. And there's been a massive publicity campaign, and it's kind of propaganda, but really showcasing the hygiene elements and the safety elements and the standards and protocols which everybody is being mandated to follow. And I guess maybe one of the good things about living in a kind of autocratic society is everybody follows the rules. There's no other alternative. So to be honest, like compliance with mask wearing and sanitization and social distancing and just being respectful is high here. So and I think that's why in many ways that it's allowed, from my perspective anyway, Dubai to host the event, which you were talking about for your car event, and to be able to bring people back here, and I guess it's just making sure promoting that message and really re-emphasize it and show people that it is a safe destination in Dubai in particular.
For you,
and
Colja,
Dave, I think on that. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I was jumping. No, I think it becomes almost word of mouth also. So we expect smaller audiences at first, and then it's those audience, they have a great time. They know it's safe. They feel that we're hitting checking all the boxes from a safety standpoint. It's well communicated on the front end, but then they tell their friends and they tell their friends. So the next time an event happens, there's going to be more people, and then the next time there's going to be more. So it's that sort of that slow movement, but definitely that communication and word of mouth almost.
That's a big deal.
I also believe testing helps. Oh, sorry.
No, that's true.
I believe testing helps. If you continue to, for example, we do not only quick testing, but like a mobile PCR test, so that you get your test results in minutes, and you just test everyone from crew to setup people, from internal people to guests. And you continue doing this every single day, even though it doesn't really make sense to test one every single day, but it feels you extremely safe, because okay, I'm okay, and I do know everyone I'm going to meet at this event is okay as well. So just setting up a miniature test facility up front to your event is extremely helpful. Dubai is doing this. They were like testing our crew every morning in the hotel room. Someone came up and took a sample, and that made everyone feel extremely comfortable. And we do have these mobile PCR testing trucks. Can test, so it's also no delay anymore. And I believe this is extremely helpful to get people to come to events again.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. There's so many questions. I'm going to get another. Jan wrote in. Sorry, I'm not going to let you talk. None of you. You're going to have to listen to Jan's question. What do you foresee trends in entertainment looking like in the virtual hybrid event world? So what are the trends in entertainment?
I really don't know, to be honest, what the trends in entertainment are. I just think, well, the trends that I've been seeing, I guess, is just more and more of this, innovative content. People are now trying to push the boundaries in terms of how they create content, and you can see this, like whether you see dance videos on TikTok or music videos or whatever. So I think people are being more creative. I think that's probably one good thing which has come out of all of this. People are embracing technology a lot more. People are looking at how they can use it differently, and how we can innovate slightly. I think that would be a trend from my side.
I really appreciate your comment, Dan, about behind the scenes. There's something there that you get to be involved in.
Well, yeah, for sure. Because let's face it, we're all quite voyeuristic in many ways. We all like to know what's happening and to see things behind the scenes. And there's nothing more than especially the people which we get to work with, to showcase the amazing talents. And it's not just what happens on a stage. It is when they're warming up backstage or they're putting the costume on. Those steps of how they physically get to that moment where they get to perform. So I think especially because we're always trying to look now at how we create engaging content. So again, it will be always about pushing that envelope and kind of building these stories, narratives around everything. So it's not just, a performance that we happen to film, but there is actually something tangible in and around it that has a message or a meaning or a reason. And again, it's about, we all talk about identifying the why. Why do we want to watch this? Well, because it's interesting, and we go on that journey with the performer rather than just watching them perform.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else have thoughts on entertainment? I remember and if Dan, if this is what you did, but remember the people that would roll down on what was that called, on the drapes? Those guys or gals.
Yeah.
Like, you could see that would just not work if it was a virtual event, because you'd have this shot of somebody. So what are your takes on where does the world of entertainment go in this new place we find ourselves?
Dave, we just did an event with people on the silks, but how we engaged.
Yeah, that. Did it work?
But how we engaged was the Cirque performers asked the audience which silks they should use and cut, and so the audience was chatting participation, and then the Cirque performer would react to what the chat audience participation was. So it was actually engaging. So again, you're not just watching, you're participating, and you're actually creating that entertainment with the performer. Anytime we can break down that wall, I think is an interesting way to engage that performance.
I think I'm going to steal that concept, because that's actually an amazing idea, where literally the user, the person viewing, get to curate their own performance to their particular style, taste, and desire. So I think that's a really nice idea. When you could, it's actually really good. I'm going to steal that one for sure.
Okay, this is the whole point of this, is to steal ideas from whoever we can. So that's good.
We'll work together.
Colja, from your perspective, how do you see entertainment shifting?
I believe entertainment in all kinds of different forms will also become more individual. Like all of you will have experienced this intimate opportunity. If you have like a Zoom event with only a limited number of attendees, and all of a sudden you have like a concert moment into this gets a lot more interactive and intimate. And therefore also A-liners now with their digital events are able to sell different packages. The first package is just the broadcast that will get you the broadcast ticket. But then you get the backstage tickets. You get the ticket that you will be in the back in the fan wall, or that you really get the after party in a Zoom call with the artist. And there's so many different elements that you can link to. Of course, it will take some time until everyone is understanding and willing to pay for this, but I see this already picking up.
We have a question I think it relates to this. How do you see international events developing differently than more national or local? And I feel like part of that question, this is from Jan, is a budget question, because you have to. Now, are you not just doing? And Keri, you talked about this. Are you not actually doing 2 events now?
I spoke about, earlier today, just about doing 2 events. Internationally, I think that's border specific as to when we can look at borders opening. But yeah, the idea that there's 2, if there's a hybrid event, there's a virtual and a live component to those, regardless of where they are in the world and what elements they have, is that there's actually 2 separate events now that we have to look at budgets for from our clients.
And because you also brought up that clients now are very budget nervous, partly because there's a lot of companies that aren't making as much money. But isn't that a concern, that it's like, well, you're going to have to convince people to, in a sense, pay as much, if not more, to do a hybrid event? Or Colja, have people responded and said, no, we can do that? Or how has that been?
Absolutely. I do see that after hitting the reset button, and when you come to the blank sheet of paper, and then now you start gathering all your budgets, your former live event budgets, but also your service, digital, social media, other media budgets, and bring them all together, and then decide what to do with this. This will be less number of events, but then you do have the budgets and really focus on it. And we do see a lot of clients doing this. They may have done 15 events over the turn of the year, visiting different trade shows, and now they decide they only do 2 hybrid events, but really focus on them and put all the budgets into these 2 projects.
Mm-hmm.
Joss.
I think that's interesting, yes, because there is that always in corporate budgets. You've got that digital marketing, you've got the social media, you've got various budgets, and now if you can combine them all and then disperse them strategically, I think that's a really interesting place to be. But Dave, back to the your international question, and maybe a bit of a tangent. We were speaking earlier, and now with, say, in Europe, the borders have closed because you can't get from one country to another without quarantining necessarily for 2 weeks. But what it has opened for us is there are no borders from a virtual standpoint. So we were just working in Dubai with Dan on a virtual event with many, many international delegates. We can work with international artists that we wouldn't necessarily be able to fly from. It's cost prohibitive, but can we hire any performer, any entertainer, any speaker internationally that we're not flying in? And that becomes, so we are in fact borderless digitally, which I think is something that we need to take advantage of, and we need to appreciate that nobody right now is out of reach for us in this new world order, which is exciting.
Yeah, agreed. Well, I mean, this conversation here, we have people literally around the world, 4 of us in a conversation, and people sending in questions that I'm clearly not going to get to all of. But those are all things that you could do now that we wouldn't have considered a year or 2, 3 years ago, or even 6 months ago, as well as we can do it now. So there's lots. So I should start by Stephanie, Stacy, Kaya, Jen, Greg, Kathy, Chanel, Stefani. Wow. There are so many questions, and please, we have to go because we have to go, but please send them in, keep them going. We're going to keep these conversations going online, and we want to hear from your questions. And we're so grateful for you joining us and being part of our Conversation Matters. I got so much I wanted to get to, but it's great. Colja, your global experience. Dan, your global experience. Same with Keri and Joss, by nature of your work, but also by nature of the way the world is going. To your last comment, Joss, we're all one big world now. I'm going to give each of you a moment. I'll start with you, Keri, and then we'll go to Joss and Dan, and I'll have Colja finish us off. What makes you feel positive and optimistic about the future? Why don't you start, Keri?
I love, today I feel really good. I feel really positive, optimistic. First, Dan's comments about, how optimistic he feels today, and his little sunburn really makes me happy. I think the fact that we can bring the 4 of us together, and 5, Dave, thanks for coming, and all the techs that are with me. I'm just really optimistic about the possibilities of how we're going to recreate not just live events, but engagement in general with humans. And I love the campfire, because I love a campfire, but that analogy it's just really, really spoke to me yesterday that we are missing that campfire gene. Like, we all have it, and we need to get back to that. I need to see some people. I do need to touch a product, but I need to touch a lot of people through the hugs. So I'm missing that. So I'm really optimistic, and everybody out there that is really, really struggling, and I know there's a lot of us out there that are, find a way to get through, because, the end of the year and into 2022, we're looking at probably a large global event tsunami happening, and we need to be ready for it.
Yay. Joss, what makes you feel optimistic?
I think similar to Keri. This has just been great. I think I woke up on January 1st and said I need some inspiration, and did reach out to international colleagues, and it's inspiring. It's inspiring to hear that Dan was on site yesterday. I spoke to our friend Michael Sorbelli in New York this morning. He was on a site visit, but it's also great to hear Colja's version of the reset, and it's what it's what we need to do. But that's the exciting part, and we are in a moment of reinvention, and I'm an entrepreneur. I love to invent things. I love to reinvent, and this is the place where we're at, and I love how we've been able to collaborate even more closely with our clients along this journey. So we can walk beside our clients and create some really cool strategic moves going forward for the industry. So I'm very excited and thrilled to have you guys on board today. So thanks.
Thank you. Dan, you talked a bit about it, but tell us what makes you optimistic and feel good about the future.
I'm just really optimistic about, even like in a weird way, like everything that we've gone through over the last 10 months has been hard, been really difficult, but it has presented some great opportunities where we can have these conversations, and it's forced us into dialogue with people which we'd never even met before. And it's also given us, a great opportunity to be able to look at how we can, have that reset, as you rightly mentioned. But I think for me, the main thing that I'm really optimistic about is when we get back to that moment of having these real tangible kind of emotive experiences again, that we'll actually appreciate them a lot more. And we'll have that moment where we're listening to that live musician that we've not been able to listen to for a very long time, and it's going to give us this overwhelming sense of just like amazingness. And I think that for me is what I'm really, really excited about.
That's awesome. Colja, tell us what gives you light towards the future.
There's really nothing I can add. It really seems like the future came earlier than expected. So we were like fast forwarded in digitalization, and it's amazing. And concentrating on these good parts of it, even though it is moving in an extremely digital sense, I still believe in this campfire gene, and I can't wait to see all of you back at one of the industry events or other events in the future, somewhere warm.
I know well, you know what? As event people, I want you to stay for this, because I know none of our work ever gets done without the crews that make it happen. ProShow did so much to make this all go. So we want to thank everything the technical that you see and hear happened because ProShow did a lot of work doing it. So thanks to ProShow Audio Visual, Decor and More. If you look at how great Keri looks, that's Decor and More. So we want to thank them. There's a lot of the folks on the E-team, Sarah and everyone behind the scenes making the chats work. All of us that are in events know that none of it works. I know that none of this works without all these amazing crews who are working hard and who have also had to find their way through this. So we thank you guys and gals so much for making this happen. And especially to Colja and Dan, thanks both of you for taking your busy day or nights to be with us. Thanks both of you for joining us today.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
All right, everybody. Yes, and conversations still matter. So we're going to talk about when that's coming up again, but don't forget to check E's site. They'll be able to connect you with our next conversation that matters. Keep the hashtag going, and we'll hear from everybody soon. I'm going to say take care, and then I don't know if there's banjo music to play. I'm not sure what's going to happen, but I'm just going to say on behalf of all of us, thanks for being with us. Goodbye, you guys. See you soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.